the drivers of the biodiversity crisis are clearly identified. There are the modification of ecosystems by human activities, the direct exploitation of natural resources, and climate change. Today, it remains only 28% of the total land area in a natural state, mostly as savannas and forests. 22% of the global land area is devoted to forestry, 37% to breeding, and 12% to crop production. In other words, on the continents, there is a strong decline of the availability of habitats for plants and animals. In addition to this loss of habitat, the type of agriculture, more exactly the intensity of agriculture, has also a strong impact on biodiversity. By example, this study in 8 European countries have shown a negative correlation between the intensity of agriculture, measured as yield, and the number of plants, rabbits, and bird species. Another aspect is the fragmentation of habitats by agriculture, cities, roads, and so on. In ecology, there is an old theory, the so-called theory of MacArthur and Wilson. This theory states that the species extinction rates are higher in small habitats than in larger ones, and that the colonization rates are higher in close habitats than in distant ones. In other words, large habitats and interconnected habitats are what species need. The last driver is climate change itself. Climate change means a change in the distribution of rainfall and temperature in space, a change of the climate niche of species. For 1 degree more on average, the climatic zones migrate 150 kilometers towards the poles. And so species have also to migrate. But a lot of them, plants and some mammals, have very limited dispersion abilities. And so probably they will lose the race with climate, even with the most optimistic climate scenarios, except of course if humankind take charge of the species migration. What are the solutions? How can we reverse this biodiversity decline? First of all, the protection of natural land is a very efficient way to maintain biodiversity. In France, by example, it has been recorded a 7% loss of the number of common birds out of the protected areas, but a 12% increase of this number of common birds in protected areas since 2004. Out of protected areas, a good solution is to increase the heterogeneity of landscape by mixing crop fields with non-cultivated areas, hedges, forest patch, and so on, which are very beneficial to the grassland plants and birds especially. The diversity within species, in other words, the genetic diversity of cultivated plants also matter, especially for the resistance to disease. It has been shown for rice in China a long time ago, and more recently for wheat in France. So the mixing of different varieties allow to decrease the use of pesticides, which has a so bad effect on biodiversity. A very promising way to reconcile agriculture and biodiversity is agroforestry. Indeed, trees buffer day-to-day climate variations. They contribute to the mineral nutrition of crops. They accumulate carbon in the soil, even if a 10 to 30% of crop production decrease is often observed due to shadow. But you have to notice that this loss can be compensated by the economic valuation of food. Last but not least, the reduction of meat and milk consumption has also an important and immediate impact on biodiversity and climate change. Indeed, you need 5 to 10 times more land to produce 1 unit of animal energy or proteins than to produce 1 unit of plant energy or proteins. Consequently, eating more vegetables and less animal products is a strong lever to fight against climate change and the biodiversity crisis.